Welcome to Better Customer Service Online. I'm Dante St James, coming to you from a motel room in Brisbane, where I'm currently traveling, being that digital nomad. We've got plenty more to come up with and ways to show you how to be better at customer service, particularly in this online era when there's so much expectation on how you're going to operate as a business and how you're going to operate as a customer service organization. So let's get underway. A quote here from Teddy Roosevelt, who the teddy bear was actually named for. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And that empathy is going to form the cornerstone or the capstone of so much of what we're going to talk about this afternoon. What we're going to look at today is what customers actually want from your business. And then we're going to look at 30 different ways that you can actually bring better customer service to your online experience. Also into the offline part as well. It's not just about how you're dealing with people online, because most of those same principles from your offline world will appreciate, that your customers will appreciate in the online world as well. This is brought to you by Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program. It's an initiative of the Australian Government, presented by Business Station in Western Australia, Regional Development Australia in Brisbane for Queensland, and Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. So let's get underway a bit more later. You'll be able to see this probably quite late tonight, actually. Be able to see this particular recording again on YouTube. Just look for the Business Station channel, or look for my name, Dante St James, which we'll get in this next screen. That's the case, it's just a bit weird on the spelling. And you'll be able to look up either myself or Business Station and be able to watch this whole presentation once again. My name is Dante St James, D-A-N-T-E, and you can find out a lot more about me online. I'm very, very Googleable. My education comes originally from the Western Sydney University in medicine and psychiatric medicine particularly. I've done some work through marketing, totally not related to medicine, but marketing and business information systems at the University of New South Wales. Finished my master's in 2016. Worked a lot with the Chartered Institute of Marketing to get my diplomas and qualifications through them. And I've done a good five individual certifications through TAFE New South Wales, just to sort of plug the gaps of knowledge where I didn't quite know those things. Consequently, I now work a lot with Facebook Australia through their global lead trainer program, and locally in Australia and New Zealand, the community trainer program. I'm a digital marketing associate and media planning professional with Facebook Australia specifically. Also delivering on behalf of Google's Digital Springboard program and working alongside older Australians with the Be Connected program, and mentoring Northern Territory small businesses that are just getting started out in the NEIS program, or New Enterprise Incentive Scheme. Enough about me though. Let's get on to what customers actually want. And when it comes down to it, this study done by PricewaterhouseCoopers back in 2018 gives a pretty good idea that maybe what we were looking at wasn't quite what customers are really after. Whilst we might be looking for fun and social responsibility, charitability, automation, a brand image, a unique experience, in reality, our customers are looking for efficiency, convenience, knowledgeable service, easy payment, and friendly service. And those things rate far above things like the atmosphere, the brand image, the unique experience or loyalty programs or charitability. Those things don't rate anywhere near as high with customers as what we may think they do. So those things, as part of your complete customer experience, yes, absolutely, they make part of that. But when it comes down to what people are looking for, efficient service, convenient service, friendly service, knowledgeable service, and an easy way to pay, as well as, to a different degree, up-to-date technology. But we'll cover that just a little bit later on. What we do know about today's customer service environment is if you get it wrong, bad news travels really, really fast, like lightning fast through Facebook recommendations or lack of recommendations, and Google reviews as well. In fact, in some places, like for instance in say TripAdvisor, where you might have some really good rankings going away, one bad day for your business can generate dozens of bad recommendations or poor reviews, which are going to completely derail your position on programs like TripAdvisor or hotels.com or booking.com or Trivago, or any of those kind of areas where people are looking. In America, it's Yelp is a very big one as well, wherever people will leave reviews and recommendations. And these days, Facebook and Google are the two major places, particularly for Australian businesses, where these particular bad news travel fast. Things do travel Very, very fast indeed. In fact, you always know it that your friends, when they've had a bad experience, they'll go straight to Facebook to complain about it. But when they have a good experience, they're not quite so quick to tell everybody about that, are they? And that's the customer service dilemma these days. Bad news does travel fast indeed. But the offset of that is that we are more willing than ever before, even in the post-pandemic or still coming through the pandemic life, we're willing to pay more for better service. And what that means is that we recognize quality and we're willing to go a little bit above and beyond to get that quality. So that may mean to go to a more expensive restaurant. It may mean to go on a slightly more luxurious tour, flying business class, for instance. How many people are willing to upgrade to business class and spend money doing it just to get what they think is a better service and a better experience, getting off the plane first, priority baggage, getting on the plane, having dedicated place to put your bags instead of the mad scramble for overhead locker space on Jetstar, for example. What happier customers do equal, though? It's pretty obvious. You obviously want happy customers because they don't complain. You want happy customers because they equate to higher sales. They equate to increased market share, and they equate to better profits. And who doesn't want that? It's the core, it's the unholy trinity of business. Bigger sales, more market share, better profits. Even if only better profits is in there for you or higher sales, you know, aim for the sky and you might just hit a tree on the way. And that's not such a bad thing. Happy customers at the core of actually what you do want to achieve when it comes to your small business and the way that customers interact with you. So now we're going to enter into 30 different ways that you can do much better at customer service. And this won't be a quick run through 30, but if you're flush and it's gone, it's okay. Remember, we are recording this and can be on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'd love to know if you know of any other ways too. Just whack them in the comments below or smash that subscribe button to see more stuff coming out from the ASBAS Digital Solutions Program right here online. So first up, I'm going to talk about practicing empathy, patience, and consistency. Empathy is that thing where you know that you're understood. It's that thing where you know you're being listened to. It's where you know that somebody is hearing what you have to say. Empathy is quite literally, the idea of standing in someone else's shoes and seeing things from their perspective. Now, this can be very hard in the customer service relationship because you may think, oh, how can I be in someone else's shoes? They're the customer, I'm not the customer. They're the complainer, I'm not the complainer. I'm the one being hammered by these complaints every day. It can be hard, but empathy is one of those things that does make us very human. And those who have no empathy are considered to be, have some kind of pathology about them that's not quite right. Empathy is what makes me smile and you'll smile back. That's a sympathetic response, but it's very closely related to empathy. It basically allows me to care about what someone else is going through enough to stop on the side of the road and help them put on their tire. Patience comes from empathy because what you actually want to achieve is a good outcome for that particular client. So wanting to achieve the outcome, that's empathy. Patience is one of the tools you'll use to be able to deliver that good outcome to them. So for instance, if you wanted to make sure that their problem was resolved, the patience factor means that you're actually willing to take the time to do it. Or more importantly, and probably less commonly these days, you're willing to have the patience to listen to their story. There's also consistency that needs to be looked at. And one of the things that I know that customers really dislike is inconsistency from the last time they came to see you to the next time they came to see you. Especially when it's like, well, last time the girl who was here let me do this. Now you're telling me I won't. And this is particularly dangerous with food and beverage places where, a particular waitress or a particular line cook was willing to, to take items off a burger and replace them with other items. And then the next person says, oh no, you can't it can't do that. It's against company policy. Nothing is more irritating to a customer than when you don't have that consistency. If you don't do it, make sure that nobody does it. If you do it, make sure that everybody is offered that if they want it. When you're doing an inconsistent approach, it makes the customer's patience fall apart. It makes their empathy for you as a human being drop to all-time lows. And by you just simply changing your mind according to your emotions and your feelings, that's showing no empathy for the customer at all. In fact, what it's doing is just making a really bad time for everybody. And what that means is a bad review is almost certainly on the way to your inbox. Secondly, is understanding that good customer service is a continuous learning process. Now, this is all about the idea that you never stop going for perfection. Continuous improvement is one of those buzz phrases from the 1990s that came across as, oh yes, we're a continuous improvement company. Just means they've got some kind of feedback loop, which is saying we take feedback about what we're doing right and wrong. We feed that feedback into our planning, our design, our way of doing business. And that helps us to then have outcomes down the track, which are better than the outcomes we've had before. The learning process, the continuous learning process is saying that not only do we stop when we fix that problem, but we go back and we review it again and again and again and again. You're not always going to get customer service right. I certainly don't, even in my businesses. Sometimes there's just times when I just miss the mark. I don't get it quite right. And there's going to be some customers who are more demanding than others, and rightly so. And there's going to be some times when I'm not in the right place or my people are not in the right place, and it gets hard to get everything done. I want my people to be in a good place as much as often, but sometimes I'm to blame for that. Sometimes our systems are blamed for that. Sometimes our calendar is to blame for it. Sometimes Google or Facebook is to blame for it. Whoever is to blame for it. Good customer service is a process that you do over time. This is why everyone's always asking for feedback. I was in McDonald's a little bit earlier, and one of the cleaning staff came out to see me and said, had a little thing around her neck, and she'd put it out in front of me and said, hi, if you don't mind scanning this QR code and giving some feedback on your experience today, because they want to know what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And by asking you for that feedback, they're asking you to participate in that continuous learning process. So what have you got in place that helps you to have continuously better customer service? You might think in a small business, I don't have time for this. I don't have the ability to do this. It doesn't have to cost a thing. It can just quite simply be a Google form that you've got that a QR code links to, and all these things are free. And you just collect the information in emails, and then at the end of the month, you collate all your emails together and go, where are we falling down? Man, I've had a lot of complaints about John this month. And so you then do something about it. It's always a continual process. You're never quite going to get it perfect. It's always just those little incremental getting better bits along the way that makes it a really fun journey as well. It makes it a little bit of a challenge for you. Number 3 is asking customers if they understand. And this one's particularly important because comprehension by the customer of what you're trying to explain to them is part of what active listening is on their part, and also what clear communication is on your part. So by skipping the assumption that someone understands what you're saying, you're skipping over the idea that you've already moved on, and they've already moved on, and they're not sort of still dwelling on the past things. Now, there's a book I read a very long time ago, which is based on psycho-spiritual development, and it was from L. Ron Hubbard, actually, the founder of Scientology, of all things. Don't think of anything of that, but Dianetics is all about this idea that if you don't understand a process or an idea that you've read, that you need to go back and go over it and over it and over it until you understand it before you move on. Because the problem is you'll get rooted in the misunderstanding of that particular concept, and you won't be able to move on. Whether you have physically moved on or not, you won't actually be able to move on because you're stuck in that place. The same thing happens with a customer. You have to keep checking in with them along the way as you're dealing with them to make sure they understand the process they're going through. If it's a complaint, understanding that, hey, I'm just going to go and get the manager. I'll be back in 2 minutes. And then if you're not back in 2 minutes, check in with them. That whole clear communication, asking if they understand the process they're going through, even if it's just part of your regular service. If you're a mechanic, for instance, letting them know what the steps are, letting them know that they'll get a call at 2 p.m. to advise what needs to be fixed, and they'll get a confirmation call at 4 p.m. to say that they're about to come and pick you up. It gives you the opportunity to be able to communicate very clearly every single step, and then keep checking back on them. So do you understand that? Yep. So you understand that this is going to happen at 3:30. Yep. Okay, great. Then you can move on. You can move on knowing that they're still going to pick up the next things you're saying, because they're not stuck back on question 2. They've moved forward with you through to question 3, 4, 5, and 6. Showing your customers your work ethic is just as important as showing your workmates your work ethic. If you're a leader in a workplace, You lead by example. So you would actually, not that you're going to work ridiculously long hours or that you're going to be some sort of superhero in your workplace, but what you're going to do at least is to show people that you're willing to put in time and effort. And they feel like you're willing to put in time and effort for them, they'll feel so much better about the customer service experience they're having. Say, for instance, John, who is running this motel, I just checked into a little bit earlier on. So it's the Best Western 85 in, it's, where am I? Hamilton in Brisbane. So John was fantastic. He gave me a full explanation of what is happening, what goes on, where breakfast is. Even the fact that I have two doors to my room. I got a back door and a front room door, which is completely weird. I've never found it before. He said, but it's really good that you're in that room because you can walk straight through and there's a little outdoor area out the back where if you feel like getting up from working this afternoon, you want a little walk outside, you can get outside, get a little sunshine and feel great about it. By explaining all this and showing me how hard he was working, that he doesn't just sit in his office. He came out, helped me with my bags, got my bags in my room, made sure everything was right, turned down the bed for me. Even, like, this guy works hard. He clearly does. You can tell he's one of the owners of the business because he puts that time in. Consequently, here I am on a webinar telling a whole bunch of people on YouTube and on the ASBAS program how good experience I had. By showing your customers how willing you are to do some work to make a better experience for someone, you give them a better experience. It's kind of an obvious link. Do the work to give them experience and they magically have that experience. But if things don't go quite right and you don't know the answer to something, do not make it up. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. In the case of John this afternoon, if I had have said, hey, do you guys have, is it pretty fast internet? So am I going to be able to do a webinar this afternoon? And he said, oh yeah, absolutely. We're doing them all the time through Zoom and all that. So he knew what I was talking about. But if he didn't know what he was talking about, and he said to me, oh yeah, no worries, you'll be able to get all that, and you probably be able to stream a bit of Netflix as well. And then I got on the internet and it was terrible. I wouldn't be having a great experience at all. But so as it goes, I'm having a really clear time on this webinar. Everything's going really well. Everything's working. And the internet connection that he said I'd have is the internet connection I am actually having. So I'm really pleased with that. I've had a great experience. But if he had also said, look, I don't really know if it is, I've never really tested it, you might want to just try hooking it up to your phone just in case. I would have been just as happy because he wouldn't have led me down a garden path and I would have had a great experience just doing it on my own in a nice room where I'm comfortable and it's quiet and I'm able to do what I need to do. But I wouldn't have been fed some false information and therefore had a really bad experience with what is going on. So good on John again. He's doing pretty well today. Hey, you do have to have a thick skin though. That this means that people who are, I guess, particularly, let's just say sensitive, people who don't take confrontation well, people who really have struggles with when people complain or come to them with problems, you're not going to last long in the customer service game, because the reality is there's going to be a Karen and a Ken in every audience, in every store, in every situation, every single business you've got to deal with. Not everyone is going to be a great customer. Sometimes there's going to be some shockers out there. So if you want to work with the good customers, you have to also work with the bad ones, which means you're going to have to develop a thicker skin if you're a little bit sensitive. Now, how you do that essentially is by telling yourself that they're not attacking you, they're attacking the experience they had. So by understanding that it's actually nothing to do with you, it's nothing to do, and even if it was you that gave them bad experience, it's not actually about the experience you gave, it's about the experience that they received. It's a reaction they're having to a thought inside their own head. And a lot of the time it's a story that they've gone and they're actually scared to come to you because they don't have a particularly thick skin and they've gone through a lot of anxiety to come to you and actually complain about it. And they're a lot more arced up and amped up than what they would normally be because, people in this world just don't know how to be honest to each other in a civilized way. So make sure you just go, look, as much as all this is really bad and you want the customer to have a great experience, just because they haven't doesn't mean you are a personal failure. Just because they're rejecting you, they're not rejecting you as a person. They're not completely putting you down thinking that you should die because of this. That's not what they're doing. They had a bad experience. They're trying to correct that bad experience. They may be not communicating it in the best way possible, but hey, we all make mistakes, which is why they're coming to you complain in the first place. Have a thick skin and you'll be able to solve this in no time whatsoever. Number 7 is paying attention to your customer's experience. This means listening. It actually means hearing exactly what it is they went through and asking questions along the way. So if they tell you that their luggage was broken at some point between getting on the flight and getting off the flight, then you actually, it's worth repeating it back to them, saying, so your luggage is okay before you're on the flight and now it's broken. Right. Okay. Just making sure you're getting the facts straight. By paying attention to your customer's experience, you get all sorts of little insights into how to deal with them, how there might be systemic issues with your business where people are constantly having a failed issue, or you may actually hear something which sounds quite familiar. You go, actually, I remember this situation. I remember what happened. You know what? We really did stuff up. Or, you know what? We actually went above and beyond. This is not our problem. By paying attention to the experience your customer had, it removes you from the ownership or the offense that you might get over your ownership of the business or of the problem. When you listen to them, it actually can't help but bring forward your empathy. And that empathy then comes forward and says, you know what, if that had happened to me, I'd be pretty damn angry as well. It's where you step outside of being the business owner and you step inside of understanding and having some insight into what your customer is actually going through. So by paying attention to your customer's experience, you're getting all that vital feedback you need to do that continuous improvement stuff we were talking about a few points ago. And number 8, we're going to show your customers that you're human. By not being robots, by not being robotic and repeating the same script back over and over and over again to everybody, we have an opportunity to show people that we too are human beings just like that. We have disappointments. We make mistakes. We are imperfect. We're not all perfect, automatons that are constantly churning out the good customer service experience. Sometimes we have bad days. We have kids, we have lives, we have families, we have hopes and fears and dreams and failures and anger and sadness. All those things are what makes us human. So sometimes admitting that, look, I'm sorry, I made a really human mistake there. I had a really bad morning, and I know that doesn't make it a great experience for you. So I really want to help you make up to that. And half the time they're just going to go, look, we all have those days. Thank you for acknowledging it. I really appreciate that. That's when I come to make a complaint to a business in a very civilized way, as I always do. It's always in that format of like going to them to say, look, this might be a problem you had. I understand we all have bad days, but I'm just letting you know. It didn't make me feel great as a customer. It wasn't a great experience for me. And that's something which, the last hotel I just stayed in, had some amazing things about it, but the shower was really stupid to use because it's one of those showers, and you'll know what I'm talking about, where the shower's set at a place where you turn it right to the hot and it gets really, really hot. And then you just bump it like the tiniest bit to the right, and it suddenly goes really cold. And you haven't gone all the way to the cold side. You've only got to the tiniest bit, so you can never quite get it right. It's a really crappy customer experience. So showing them that the plumber who set that up and configured it is just human as well, goes, look, it can be fixed. This is something that's actually really easy to fix. The people who did it, they're just human, just like you and I. Number 9, practicing active listening. Now, active listening is not just listening with your ears and hearing something. It's about showing that you're actually listening. Active listening is things like, yep, okay, yep, and understanding it and saying, oh yeah, I hear you. Oh, it's responding during somebody's feedback to you. So you're not just sitting there with a blank look on your face. You're going, huh? You're actually nodding in agreement, letting them know that you're understanding, letting you know you're comprehending what they're saying, letting them know and understand that you have some sort of idea of what they're going through based upon the story. They're actually being heard. They're not just talking to a brick wall. If there's a great big wall in front of your face, you can see it when you talk to people and they've got this big wall of protection around them. The thick skin got so thick it became a wall, and it's just become this thing where they just don't. You're not getting listened to. You know that nothing's ever going to happen. And you quite often get this when you talk to people in very high volume businesses where they're just listening to you for as long as it takes for you to shut up and get out of the place. Fast food establishments really good at that. When you make something back to them, they just want to resolve it and get out, get you rid of you as quick as possible. They're not even listening to what the problem was. They're just going straight into solve mode. Number 10 is where you admit your mistakes. So admitting your mistakes is so important because there's very few things more frustrating in a customer service environment than a company that refuses to admit they did anything wrong when they clearly made a mistake. If they brought you the wrong color gadget and you definitely ordered it, you've shown them and they just refuse to admit, they won't say sorry or anything, there's nothing that irritates us more than a company that won't say sorry for a mistake they made because of some sort of sense of misplaced pride that they've got, that if they make this mistake, that somehow it's the worst thing ever and they're going to get sued. And quite often they're being told by lawyers not to take responsibility and not to admit a mistake. It's a terrible thing to do. Hospitals often do it, especially private hospitals, and America is rampant with this idea of not admitting the mistakes. Admit the amount of mistake, because remember, you're human. The empathy that you express to others is also an empathy that comes back to you. People understand that sometimes mistakes happen. It's not the end of the world. And if it can be fixed, fix it. Admit it, work on it, get it done. It's just a much more efficient way of going. Number 11 is related to that, is following up after the problem is solved. So if you've admitted the mistake and you've gone on and fixed the mistake, now your next step is to go and follow up on the problem after it's solved. And by doing that, you're simply making that phone call, making a note in your diary, making a phone call to go, hey, just letting you know that refund that we processed for you last week, just wanted to check to see if that happened. And then they can tell you that, yeah, it happened. Thank you so much. It gives them a chance then to give you additional feedback, which can be very important for your complaints process. So you're not just getting feedback on how good your business does on the first instance, but getting that feedback on what it's like when people deal with you and make complaints is just as important to understand that that too is something that people have to go through. And to get some feedback on that means that you can improve and continuously improve the experience that people are having, not just when they first deal with you, not when they just first use your services, not when they buy stuff from you, but also when they come to a customer service setting where they need to get support or they need to make a complaint, that process works really well as well. So following up after the problem is solved just ties everything up nicely. It provides closure for you. You can leave notes in your customer service management or your customer relationship management system, and closure exists for them too. They understand that these things happen. They know that they were listened to. They know that this is followed up, and they'll often thank you quite generously for it. Say, you know what, thank you so much. I didn't think it was ever going to have a great experience, but look, you actually made it work for me. Number 12 is where you get real by getting a little bit personal. And this plays into the empathy thing as well. But instead of you being the person that's empathetic, you're allowing someone else to feel some empathy towards you, which is what you want. Ultimately, is for someone to understand that you're human. Remember, we're looking at that too. I'm human. I make mistakes. Understanding the humanity that we both share gives us a common ground to meet from. So it could be something like, say, for instance, oh, look, I've got kids as well. I know it can be really hard and you just need everything to run really, really on time. Really sorry it didn't. Or it could be just saying that there's something, I'm a gamer too, just like you. And I know that when the internet is really bad, it affects the whole thing you're doing and it really derails your day. Or it could be, oh yeah, I know when I'm checking into this hotel, when it takes forever to line up and get on there, you've got kids screaming down one end, you've got the husband growling in the car outside. It just becomes a really hard thing to go through. Being real means sharing a little bit about yourself. You don't have to share your whole life story, but just showing that you understand someone else because you've got kids, you're a parent, you work a hard job, you are struggling with the same things in life that what they might be struggling in, helps that empathy to work both ways. You're showing empathy for them by getting a little bit personal and showing that, I understand what you're going through because I've got kids too. They immediately then feel, oh, she understands me because she's got kids too. And then they calm down a little bit. And the whole thing just becomes a nice conversation where you're actually talking to each other in a nice, calm way. I was using sock puppets then. I've come to an all new low. Number 13 is to be accessible. And when we're talking about being accessible, we're talking about the ability for you to be easily found, easily used, and things to be easily sold. Now, by being accessible, it doesn't just mean someone is able to wheel a wheelchair into your store, although that is a massively important thing for general accessibility, into work premises or shops or offices or any of those sort of things. What we're talking about right now is the accessibility of people being able to access your business. So, for instance, not just physically, but online as well, particularly online. So that people can find you to easily be able to follow up and get customer service from you. looking you up in, phone directories, looking you up on Google, looking you up on your website to find your contact details, having a phone number that's answered, having a mobile number that's answered, having an email address that's answered, having an online form. Or these days, it can be even more important to move away from the accessibility through online forms and be accessible through social media platforms. And by that, we're talking about Twitter, which has become quite an important customer service tool, more so in America, less so in Australia, but it's still something which people do expect. If you have a Twitter profile that you're monitoring enough to be able to, have some sort of interaction through it. Facebook Messenger through your Facebook business page absolutely should be the bare minimum for any business who's operating, even not online today. Having someone be able to contact you through your Facebook business page is just par for the course. It's just bare minimum these days. It should at least have that. But you might have other ways. So through Instagram is becoming even more important. I have many more leads and customer inquiries going through Instagram these days than I have going through Facebook. And that's quite largely because I'm using Clubhouse now as a way to reach out to potential new customers. So having that channel for people to be able to work through gives them the opportunity to connect with you where they are rather than where you are. You want to deal with me, you come to my front door and you knock on my front door and come on in. Doesn't work that way anymore, buddy. You're going to have to go a little bit further and provide ways for people to access you through the means which they want to use. Facebook Messenger, Instagram Instant Message, email, SMS, whatever it takes to help people to get there, because 64% of customers these days do not want to call you on the phone. They want to be able to contact you another way. Now, whilst you want to be contacted by phone, remember that they may have trauma around that and they would prefer not to. They would prefer to be able to message you and then get a response so they feel like they're not invading your time. Let's face it, the less phone calls you're getting and the more messages you're getting, the more you can actually do that in your own time where you're not having someone make a phone call that derails your entire day. Rolling out the white glove treatment doesn't necessarily mean every customer gets to have this incredible, luxurious customer experience that makes no sense because it's not replicable across your whole customer base. What it does say, though, is that give people a little bit better a service than what they were expecting, and they will rave about you. When I flew Virgin Australia before the global pandemic, they used to have the most amazing service in business class. I aspired for it. Whenever I managed to get an upgrade through, points upgrades or through just luckily being upgraded because somebody just simply upgraded me, it was an amazing experience. The food was incredible. The service was incredible. They made it an experience to go through. Not so much these days, a little bit, they've got a long way to go to get that back and going again. But when you go through that experience and you have it, it is quite an amazing experience to go through. Now, the white glove treatment is a little bit what I got from John at this motel today. He didn't have to help me get my bags out of the car because it's not really his job. Even though he runs a motel, hospitality for him seems to mean giving that white glove treatment where he can. But he obviously, when he's really super busy and there's 15 people checking in at once, he can't do all that. But it was just me and there's no one else nearby. So he put on the white glove treatment where he could. So by doing that, it's had me again talking about this on a webinar. I'm going to be reviewing this on Facebook and Google, on TripAdvisor, on Expedia, all the places where I would normally book hotels, because I think it should be known the guy's a bit of a legend and he's a really nice guy. And he did roll out that white glove treatment, or you might call it the red carpet treatment. And I was checking into a local motel, a family-owned motel. Nothing that fancy or special, but he made it a nice experience by rolling out that white glove treatment. Now, by creating a customer community, you could be creating a really interesting customer service tool. My example of this may be something like Telstra's crowd support. Now, Telstra have traditionally been really, really bad when it comes to customer support. Calling up their call centers can be a most long waiting, annoying. It can be, it can be such a hard thing to deal with Telstra on the phone because it's just frustrating, it's annoying, and it can take forever to do. Whereas if you create an online community, say a Facebook group or a Facebook presence that allows people to give feedback and ask other people about how to deal with a problem they may be having with, say, your online course, It's not just you that has to answer it. Now, Facebook recently in Australia and New Zealand did the same thing, created what they call a Boost with Facebook Australia group. And in this group, you've got Facebook staff who are answering, you've got people like myself, Facebook trainers who are contracted to Facebook, trying to provide those answers as well. But you've also got users of the platform. So regular everyday business users who are just nice people who are there to help out people as well. And by creating that community, they've allowed people to come in and answer those questions when they can't be there. Or it may be in the case of, say, Telstra, that the official answer may be, look, you need to bring that phone back and get a replacement that's going to cost you this much. Whereas a user might go, hey, actually, I worked a workaround for that. If you go in your settings and do this, 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 and this, then you'll be able to use it just like normal. That might be something which Telstra is not really allowed legally to say as a workaround, but the workaround works and it got someone happy again. By creating that online customer community, you're taking the pressure off yourself to provide all the answers, and you've got the ability for others to provide those answers for you. Or you can just employ someone to be in there all the time, and they can be the people who are providing answers as well. This is going to drastically depend on I don't know why I said it like that. This will drastically depend on the kind of business you've got. And that business may be something like, online coaching, which would benefit greatly from an online community of your customers. But though, if you are, say, a mechanic, maybe not so much, because, there's things that can go horribly wrong when people try to DIY things like mechanical services, or electricians, or carpenters, or builders, where you shouldn't be doing a lot of things on your own because you can cause things to be quite damn dangerous, to be honest. Number 16 is making sure your customer service team is happy. The people who are answering the phone for you, the people who are taking care of customers on your behalf. If they are in a bad place, if you are just micromanaging them and having a horrible time and treating them like crap, well, then they're going to treat your customers like crap in return. It's very hard to keep coming back day after day after day and being nice to people when the people who you work for are being horrible to you. So by keeping customer service team happy, giving them breaks, treating them like they're human, treating them the way you want them to treat your customers, you're in a position there where you're able to just be a better company, a better boss, and a better organization overall. It kind of makes perfect sense. Keep your people happy, and they will keep your customers happy for you. Number 17 is making collecting customer feedback easy. Now, today this happened in McDonald's. I said that she just basically pulled down and said, here, just scan this QR code in the card and just give us a quick, it'll take you a minute to do a survey. Of course, they made it easy for me to give that feedback, and I gave feedback that was honest and constructive, and it really worked. It was an easy way of collecting the feedback. If you have to make people jump through so many hoops, like they cannot leave that feedback until they've logged in, registered for another system, downloaded an app, they're not going to do it for you, because if you make them jump through more than one click to actually go through and give you feedback, they're just not going to want to do it. If you say, oh, you must give me feedback and it must only be through TripAdvisor, you're making the assumption that the person already has a TripAdvisor account they can log into and easily do that. If they have to sign up and go through a whole process, this is why getting feedback and collecting customer data through things like Facebook and Google is so much easier, because it's generally always logged in and they're tools that we're using every single day. So it becomes a very native experience to our experience, rather than having to go and try and work out a whole new process and a whole new way of doing something. So make that collection of the feedback as easy as you possibly can. Check-ins with COVID-19 procedures has only really become an easy thing because we could just hold our phones up and scan a QR code and go straight through. We're in the Northern Territory, for instance, where there's the NT check-in app, but there's one app that's used by almost every single business and workplace out there to do your check-in. Makes it easy, make it simple, and it means that you've just got the way to get through it all. Number 18, know your customers. Now, this makes things so much easier when you understand who your customer is and what they actually want. Now, this doesn't mean mind reading. It doesn't mean that every customer is going to want the same thing, but they're walking into a premium whole food store. They're probably someone who values what goes into their body, and they're looking for a premium whole foods experience. If they're walking into an antique bookstore where they know they're not going to get anything for under $100, then they have the expectation that they're going to pay quite a bit to get an antique book. And that's where you understanding who they are come in. And rather than saying simply, how can I help you? You're saying, are you looking for something special today? Knowing a customer who, like a lost man who's walking to a store, which may be a cosmetic store, and understanding that he's probably not looking for that cosmetics himself. He's looking for someone else, and go, hey, is it for the daughter or for the wife? And you might be making an assumption there, and you might go, actually, it's for me. I'm a drag queen. And no, probably not that sort of thing's going to happen. But if you're selling high-end cosmetics, skincare products, if you see that person is not your usual person, and they go, hey, are you buying for yourself or for someone else? Helping to understand that you understand that they are looking a little bit lost and they're looking a bit out of their place helps you to provide a much better customer experience. When someone's having a great customer experience, they smile, they'll come back to you and they'll go, oh, that's so good. I felt so awkward walking in here, but I didn't quite know what to get. Knowing your customers, knowing who your regulars are, knowing their names as well is something really, really simple that provides such a nice experience that makes it so much more pleasant when people do deal with your business. Number 19, practice clear communication. Now you'll notice that I try not to speak too quickly when I'm doing a webinar because I want to be completely understood. Whilst you can see what's on the screen and you can see what the words are, and I kept it as least wordy as possible. If I was speaking too quick and stumbling over my words, nothing's going to stick. Nothing's going to actually be clearly communicated because I'm mumbling and I'm stumbling and I'm using colloquialisms that only make sense to certain people. If I'm using a lot of colloquialisms and slang, I might be missing out on having that clear communication go through to somebody who may have English as a second language, for instance. Speaking in too broad an Aussie accent may mean that other people on YouTube may have trouble understanding me. And speaking fast in general really does promote mumbling. And we Australians are very, very good at mumbling. We tend to slur off the ends of words. We contract the ends of words. We speak down in our sentences rather than up in our sentences like Americans may do. And we change, letters from T to D, for instance. When we say we're not looking to go in the water, we're looking to go in the water, which is what? WORTA, water. So it just doesn't make sense. But if you do enunciate clearly and you present clearly, it's something which does help you to be understood clearly. And that's ultimately what you want, is for your customer to understand what you're saying, so they understand what they're buying, they understand what the repercussions of making different choices are, so that they can make an informed, practical decision right there on their feet about what the purchase decision they'll make is going to be. If someone's being clearly communicated to and you've been clearly understood, they're going to make a much better decision about that purchase and most likely not be coming back with a complaint afterwards. And if they do, it's usually a product problem or a fault rather than them not understanding what it is they're getting for their money. Clear communication. You may need to practice it right in the mirror. Just use a mirror and actually practice speaking to a customer in the mirror so you can get that right instead of, it's trying to look like it didn't like this, and I was going down the other road, and I didn't know you might just turn right down there like that big crew. Sometimes you just don't understand what someone's saying, but that was exactly the experience you can have in a lot of regional rural areas of Australia, where people are giving directions using terminology and slang and really, really bad speaking habits to just make you more confused than what you were when you came to them in the first place. Number 20, don't be stiff. When I say stiff, is like just blank faced. Have a little bit of fun with it. Smile a little bit. By being a bit more smiley, you're going to be in a position where you're actually going to be much more clearly understood and you're going to be much more pleasant to be dealing with. We don't want to walk into a shop and just deal with the guy standing behind there going, yeah, where you want. We don't want that going on because it just makes it a really unclear, poorly presented and confusing customer experience. By loosening up a little and being friendly to people that come, giving them a smile, being a little bit more authentic rather than just being, oh, yeah, you want to check in? All right, yeah, mate. No worries, I'll do that for you. It just makes it a really unpleasant experience when someone's that stiff and upright that you feel like they're, number one, not listening to you, and number two, that you're not being heard. And that's so important. So avoiding being stiff wherever you can helps to make a much better customer experience. Number 21 is not using negative language. Now, this might be like a bit of a no-brainer because you don't want to be saying like all the no's and all the can'ts and won'ts. And when I say negative language, I'm talking about no, can't, won't, shouldn't, don't, all those sort of do not kind of things. Now, I've used negative language in this very sentence. Don't use negative language as a negative language usage. What it's saying is that when you use that, it becomes something which people immediately get defensive about. When you're using negative language, it brings the mood down. But in the cases of quite angry customers, they put this wall up in front of them and they suddenly become very, very defensive because they're being told what to do and they've been told that they've done something wrong. Look, you should have gone online. This would have been dealt with so much. Shoulda, coulda, woulda is also just really negative language. It's people are going to respond really poorly to it because it's like they're being condescended to. They're being talked down to. It's like, well, you should have just done this on the website. It would have been sorted out 3 days ago, mate. But when you do that sort of thing, you're there to educate a customer, not to lecture a customer. When you're lecturing a customer, no one's coming off as an idiot except for you. And they'll just know, why would I go back to him? He just talks to me like I'm a 2-year-old. Negative language breaks customer relationships. But the opposite of 22 is positive language. And this is the ability for you to be able to, yes, can, will, shall, yes, instead of don't, do. So you can, instead of saying something like, you should have just done this online, mate, it would have been able to be fixed so much quicker. You could say, hey, next time you need to do it, just do it online because then it's all done really quickly. You've done how to do it. Here, let me show you how to do it. That's much more positive rather than making an accusation towards someone. You should have done this online, mate. It would have saved you some time. You can say instead, well, next time this ever comes up, let's just do it online. I'll show you how to do it, get you set up so it's much, much quicker to get resolved. That is a positive experience. That's a positive thing that someone's gone through. It means that someone's not only heard and understood, but they've been given the tools to be able to do better with this next time. You haven't accused them of being dumb. You haven't accused them of being idiots. You haven't condescended to them. All you've just simply shown them is that, yeah, well, you're coming this way. We'll get it resolved for you. And next time, using the word and instead of but is also a very positive language usage. When I'm saying the word but, it's quite often when you go, sure, we'll get that back to you, but I'm going to need some identification. Just automatically goes, yeah, I want to do this for you, but here's the problem. Instead, using an and, you'll go, yes, we can fix that for you. And if I just get your identification, let's get that rolling. It's just so much more positive than saying, yeah, but I'm going to need some ID, mate. Just want to grab that out and I'll get the process going for you. It feels a lot more like you're going, yes, I want to help you, but, and the but stuck in the middle of a sentence just breaks everything. It's like psychologically, you start off on one side of it and you go, oh yeah, okay, I want to do this for you. That's great. But, and then everything you've said before the but gets wiped out now, and that gets moved across. And now the new thing that's coming over from the right or the left is now the problem. So there's no longer a solution, but they just hear the problem, not the solution. I hope that makes sense. Just adding an and into the sentence instead of a but. I'd like to be able to help you, and I know I can, and we can do it by doing this, rather than going, I'd like to be able to help you, but. It immediately just goes, it destroys the I would like to help you and just presents yet another obstacle for the customer to try and get over on their own. We can use what is called the Carp Method. So the Carp Method, I know that's a European carp, not a carp fish. The Carp Method is control the situation, acknowledge the dilemma, refocus the conversation, problem solve so the customer leaves happy. And how this works is that by controlling the situation, it's often just calming a customer down without necessarily telling them to calm down. So it's going, how can I help you? They start going, all right, let's just start at the very beginning. So you start to talk them down from going blah, 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 and letting all that verbal diarrhea out and just getting them calm and methodical. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. So what did you buy? That's controlling the situation because you're taking it from this crazy whoosh, 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 throwing bolts of lightning at you to, okay, let's just stop with the lightning for the minute and let's instead take one bolt at a time. So hand me the lightning bolt rather than throwing it at me. By controlling the situation, you also control the mood. And when someone feels like they've had someone take control of a situation, they feel safe. Contrary to popular belief, customers actually don't want to come to you and complain. Very few customers ever enjoy that process. It's not a nice experience to go through. And a lot of customers, myself included, go through a lot of anxiety before it comes to the point where they can feel comfortable coming and complaining about something. By controlling the situation, you're creating a space. You're what they call it psychologically holding space. You're holding space for someone to safely communicate their concern to you. Now, next step, the A in the carp, is acknowledging the dilemma, acknowledging that there is a problem. They're going, yeah, I had this problem. There's all this, oh yeah, I can see that was a real problem. Okay, so tell me what happened next. So by acknowledging that there's a problem there, someone goes, I'm safe, and they're not going to try and weasel their way out of it. I feel like I've got the upper hand. When the customer feels like they've got the upper hand, they feel so much more safer, and it calms them down. Refocusing the conversation away from the problem to the solution is a very clear one. So sometimes when a customer is just being completely like throwing those lightning bolts one after the other at me, I can just go like, okay, wait, let's just stop right there. I want to fix this for you. And I think I understand what the problem is. Here's what I'd like to do. So you're immediately swinging around from defending yourself from all the lightning bolts coming at you, rather than that you're saying, hey, I can fix this. Let's fix it. And that will then immediately, number one, controls the situation, acknowledges that something needs fixing, and it's just got them in a position where they're not thinking about complaining anymore. They're thinking about, oh, thank goodness this is going to be fixed. Great, because that was exhausting having to be such a nasty person during this exchange. Problem solving, so the customer leaves happy, is actually working through the solving of the problem with the customer. So you're not just saying, here's my fix. You're going, okay, here's an idea. And you present it to the customer and help them to come through it so they feel like they've solved the problem themselves. They feel powerful. When a customer feels powerful, they feel happy. When they walk away happy, profit. Understood? Carp. Control the situation. Acknowledge the dilemma. Refocus the conversation and problem solve so the customer ultimately leaves happy. Love it. 24. Solve what you can on the first call. This is not, oh, I don't know how to do this, I'm just going to hang up, or not fixing it at all, or not acknowledging a problem. When you acknowledge it and you control the situation and you try to solve it on that first call, even if it takes a little bit longer to do, you're not allowing this thing to fester. And it's like, for instance, I've got an ingrown toenail right now, and I just keep not dealing with it, and it's getting worse and worse and more painful and more painful. That's what customer service is like. If you deal with it on the first go, I know I just gave you a horrible picture of my ingrown toenail. If you deal with this thing coming in at the first go, then you're able to just nip it in the bud straight away, and it's gone. It's no longer a problem. It's dealt with. It's so magic. Tick the box. Next. It makes you feel more powerful as a business, knowing that you not only are good at what you do, but you're great at solving problems. 25, always close conversations correctly. Have a clear end. Just hang up the phone in a huff. No, we don't do that. Just finishing on an unclear note, where you, for instance, you'll notice in call centers a lot where they'll go, is there anything else I can help you with today? That's a really good way of wrapping up a call, because usually you've already dealt with the situation. They've already done it and said, yeah, just fix that problem for me. Yeah, no worries. Okay. I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. And saying goodbye, closure, that's what it provides. People need closure in their lives. It's just like, for instance, that ex that you broke up with back 10, 20 years ago, who you never really quite knew what happened because they just stopped talking to you, or they ghosted you online or something like that. Well, that's a lack of closure, and it causes a lot of anxiety with people, just like with customers. If they don't feel like the conversation's being properly closed, they walk away feeling uncertain, anxious, and going, what just happened there? I feel like I was just corporate talked out of this. So close those conversations up correctly and try and end it with, can I help you with anything else before you go? Just to make them feel like that they've got the option to go for more if there is more that needs to be addressed. Number 26, use customer service templates. This is particularly great when it comes to email customer service or social media customer service. Have a notes file or a Word file where you've got all this stuff that you can just copy and paste in, when it's got common answers to things. It makes you a lot more efficient. And when you're dealing with a lot of people coming in with a lot of questions all at once, your scripted answers are going to be your best friend. The key is to make sure you write those scripted answers in a very real, authentic way, rather than coming off sounding like a robot. That's the last thing we need. We don't want robots in here. So if you're able to do that, you're in a position then to be very clear and very concise and very practiced, so that when they ask a further question, it's not a surprise. You understand what they now understand themselves, and you can expand their knowledge into some other area that helps them to solve the problem, or helps you to solve the problem ultimately that they're going through. Number 27, help your customers to help themselves. Online knowledge bases, frequently asked questions, areas where people can go into support portals. This makes your job easier as a customer service individual and as a business owner. And it makes it so much easier for them, because if they can ultimately avoid that phone call altogether, this is why Facebook and Google use these tools so heavily, is because they cannot possibly take all the calls that they could possibly take from all the people in the world who want to call and just email and talk to someone direct, because there's not enough staff on the planet to be able to do that. So they have to have these online communities and forums that answer those questions in the most easy to find way and the most Googleable way they possibly can. Help your customers to help themselves, and you won't be clogged up with phone calls and emails of you having to help them. Number 28 is staying informed with customer data. Customer data comes from feedback. It comes from usage patterns. It comes from the way that people use your social media, your insights, your Google Analytics. They're going to tell you a lot of things. If you're getting feedback from customers, see what that feedback is, read what the results are, find out ultimately where things are going right and wrong, so you know what you need to change, all the things you need to double down on to do better at next time as well. 29, surprise your customers with an offline thank you, or even an online one. Acknowledging a customer in public on a social media page or sending them a thank you card is one of those things where it's a surprising thing. Receiving a present from a company. Last year, I received a lovely Christmas gift box from a company called Encore, who I've built a few websites with. It was such a lovely way to end the year, and it left me feeling great about that particular company. So that when I do want to deal with them at some point, I will actually mention, say, hey, thanks for sending me that the bottle of wine and the lovely camper. That was a really, really sweet thing to do. For them, it's just part of what they do. It's their way of surprising their customers with a thanks for dealing with them in that last year. Number 30, as we come to the end, remember that everyone is a customer service rep in your organization. You, the person who answered the phone, the person in the workshop, the person downstream who's helping to answer the emails for you. Everyone who has some kind of part to play in your organization is part of the customer service mentality and part of the customer service process, because they're not always going to come cleanly in the front door for you. They might go through someone who goes through someone who goes through somebody who works in your fulfillment area, or somebody who, just making sure that everyone who works for you understands that this is a customer service oriented place, and that we like our customers. We want our customers to be happy, because that's what keeps us all in jobs, right? So everybody is responsible for it, not just you as the CEO or the business owner. I'd like to thank you for joining me this afternoon. My email address is dante@treaty.com.au. You can very, very welcome to join with me on LinkedIn, my Facebook page, I am Dante St James, and Instagram. We can just look for my name there. You'll find me very easily. That's the beauty about having a weird name. It's really easy to find you online. I'd love to be able to chat to you more about how you can do more customer service. And I'd like to be able to chat to you more about the kind of things that we can present on the ASBAS Digital Solutions Program with these free webinars and interactive workshops. And if you'd like to work one-on-one with myself or any one of the other fantastic ASBAS Digital Solutions advisors right across the Northern Territory, Western Australia and Queensland, just go to businessstation.com.au. That's businessstation.com.au. Thank you again for taking time out to spend time on your business, not just working in your business. Have a great day.